And I'm not here by myself. I'm here with techologist Matt Dickerson. How you doing, mate?
Yeah, good, mate. That song was just for me, was it? Someone you love, you're thinking of me.
It was a rock ballad, or not even a rock ballad, just a ballad, just for you,
Yeah,
mate.
thanks, mate. I feel warm and fuzzy.
Well, I tell you what, warm and fuzzy in the police ranks over the last couple of weeks with a global sting going on.
Yeah, this is really cool, actually. I love it when the police actually do something that's really cool. They hired a hacker, which I find impressive for a start. They found a guy that obviously had been doing some hacking, and they thought, we could use your skills. They actually paid him money, paid him $120,000. And they said, we want you to go and write an app, an encrypted messaging app that the underworld will use, which is a pretty big challenge, isn't it? Trying to get something that infiltrates the whole underworld system.
Well, if I had the skills, 120,000 might convince me.
Yeah,
for sure.
that's fair enough.
I mean, didn't he have a reduced sentence as well?
Yeah, that probably helped in his decision-making process as well.
I mean, you did pretty well in that. And you know what was interesting as well is this actually started out over a couple of beers. A couple of federal police officers were talking with the FBI, just having a brewski. Hey, welcome to our shores.
Yeah.
And back in 2018, apparently, and then it all
a few years
kicked
ago,
off.
yeah. So then what they did was they created this encrypted, or this hacker created an encrypted messaging app. So obviously when you've got a couple of crims hanging around, setting up a drug deal, they don't want people listening in, so they like to use encrypted messaging apps. So he created an encrypted messaging app. It would only work on a jailbroken phone. So a jailbroken phone has the normal operating system removed and an alternative operating system installed. Not really something that most people do, because you want normal apps to run on it. So it had to be a specific set of circumstances. And then they started distributing some phones around some little underworld figures, and then it started to get to the point where, hey, what are you using to message? I'll use this app, and it was called Anom, A-N-0-M. So obviously standing for anonymous, but with a zero in there just to make it cool and groovy. So
Marketing.
Marketing, that's right. So they distributed these phones around some underworld figures. Next thing you know, this was the messaging app used by anyone. You want to set up a drug deal, you want to have a hit taken out on someone, this is the app you use, because, hey, it's encrypted, Dan. No one else will listen to us on this app.
Well, encrypted, for those who haven't looked into it technologically, that basically is like, I don't know, it gets encoded at one end, and then it doesn't get decoded until the other end. So if someone picks it up in the middle,
correct,
they can't read it. That's right.
So go back to the old World War II days with Enigma, when people were sending encrypted messages, the same sort of thing, just on a modern version of that. So you're right, you need the app at each end to be able to decrypt to and encrypt it, and then decrypt it because they understand each other. In the middle, you intercept that message. It's just rubbish.
Gobbledygook, yeah.
Exactly right.
Yeah.
So they're using this. Unbeknownst to all these people using this was that the police from various countries around the world, you mentioned the FBI, we've got our federal police, you've got police in Canada, so you've got police at different authorities around the world, and they're sitting there just watching and looking at every single message that these crims are sending around the world. And then finally, they did a simultaneous sting where they basically went in and raided a whole bunch of places around the world at the same time. A minor inconvenience was the fact that no arrests were made in the US of A because of privacy laws over there. They said you couldn't go and do this. So the police have got the information there, the FBI have got all this info, but they can't use it to arrest people. They've got to get them on other things. Now they're a bit of a wake up to it now. Anyone using a nom's gone, oh, let's stop using that. But they've still got the information, so they'll probably use it. But across Australia, Canada, etc., lots of arrests.
Well, yeah, it said that the joint, workforce or task force prevented 150 murders, foiled several large narcotics shipments, and led to over 250 weapons seized and $48 million in currency. That's big bickies.
48 million. So you've got some crims out there at the moment going, damn you, Dan, why did you tell me to use this Anon app? 48 million down the drain. That's right. So it's significant. It's not just a little bust where there's a guy around the corner selling a bit of marijuana. This is a serious drug bust across the world, and all made possible by this one hacker who, for some reason, he wants to stay anonymous, so he's not having his name released.
You reckon? Yeah, you reckon?
I don't think they'd use an anonymous app to go and take care of him if his name was released.
I think the byproduct of this as well is that it's going to cast doubt over what people are using and communicating. So now this is out, and it's like, hang on, we got really duped in the underworld. We've got to be careful of police all over the world. They're actually pretty clever.
Yeah. No, I think it was a really good operation, and it's a few years in the making, but a good, clever way for policing or authorities to say, we've got to get on the same level as the people who are committing the crimes. What are they doing? Let's get into their heads and use what they would use and go and create an app for them to use.
Well, do you mind sticking around? Because for those who just have normal phones, you, me, that, just travelling around on the streets, there's the question of if police can actually ask you for your password. Do you mind sticking around? We'll answer that.
Sure thing.
It's Maroon 5, don't want to know at 7 to 8, but something we do want to know about, Matt Dickerson, our techologist. Can police ask for your phone password?
Well, I'm not really liking the idea of having to give legal advice here on your show, Dan, but no, basically, if police walk up to you and say, hey, I'd like to have your password thanks to your phone, then the answer is typically no, except if you're walking down the streets of Ireland. And now the police have just been given powers to say, hey Dan, I'd like to see your phone and give me your password, and you can say no, and they can say, sorry, we now have the power to force us to give you your password. Now they're meant to have a warrant on there. I tend to kind of say yes to people with a gun on their hip. That sways me a little bit. So I might say yes, even though I could legally say no. That's not much fun legally saying no if there's someone there that can use a bit of brute force on you. But in Ireland, they've changed the rules because when you think about it, they pull over a car, for example, and they say, hey, open your boot, and the person goes, okay, I better open my boot. The police are telling me to. Your phone, as we just heard in the last story around people using phones for criminal activity, if the police were suspecting that you were up to some sort of criminal activity, they could say, let me see your phone, and before this rule or law was changed in Ireland, you could have said, no, you don't have the right to see my phone. But now they have the right to see your phone, give me the password, let me get on your phone, and they can sit there and browse through it, look through your social media pics, look through all your accounts to try and find that you might be up to something, or they might just be sticky beaks and want to stick in and put their nose around all your stuff.
I mean, technically they could do it not going through your phone, going through everything outside of that anyway. And to be honest, if you've got nothing to hide, then you can just sort of just show it to them. But
yeah, that's the point. I think a lot of people, I mean, there's different arguments there. People say if you've got nothing to hide, then why worry? People who are very focused on their civil liberties say, no, they shouldn't be able to look at my stuff because I might have a photo in there that I don't want people to see, or comments or interesting ideas that I'm sharing on social media. I don't want police looking at that. So there's arguments on both sides. But generally, if you're a law-abiding citizen, then you shouldn't have too much to worry about.
Yeah, and I mean, look, we are saying that, no, this is not proper legal advice. We don't have the training in the area. I think... Look, if police are suspecting you of criminal activity, they can detain you anyway until they get those warrants?
That's right. They can get the warrants. They can actually go through, there's a process where they can usually get they've got teams of IT people in police departments to try and get past passwords anyway. Again, I think the messaging here is that there are countries who are saying, we want to now make it legal to go through and just ask for your password, and that's a reasonable thing for us to do.
I get it. Messaging. The messaging here is... Yeah, good on you, Matt.
Hey, good work.
Now let's change it to clean energy at the moment, because Japan is starting to make a move into hydrogen. Why is this a good move?
Well, the big issue with hydrogen is that the problem with batteries, having, say, cars going around batteries, that's fine. They're fantastic at the moment, and they're progressing quite well. But when you start to get to the stage where you want to fly a plane and you can't use oil or fuel, or normal fuel, it gets a bit harder flying planes. There are electric planes out there, but you've got to carry batteries.
And
batteries are heavy, yeah. When you start putting batteries onto ships, sure, ships are heavy anyway, but when you want to go large distances, which ships tend to do, you've got to have a lot of batteries on there, and then that takes up room that you could have cargo that was on that particular ship, for example. So the energy density of different fuels is important. So petrol, diesel, petrol, oil derivatives are quite energy dense. Batteries are nowhere near the same energy density, so you've got to have more volume taken up. Hydrogen is also very energy dense. So hydrogen is seen, even though we might still have electric cars with batteries going well into the future, hydrogen seems a really good fuel source, yes, for cars, but also more for planes and ships.
Okay.
So when you get to the stage where we're really trying to cut back on our environmental footprint, but also we might get to the stage where oil becomes scarce, or we start to run out of oil, or
that's
becomes
a
ridiculously
legit
expensive.
concern.
The great thing about hydrogen is we can keep producing hydrogen through electrolysis out of water.
Yeah.
Just break apart water. Now, when I say just break apart water, that's a little bit harder than just breaking apart the electrolysis
not a
process.
chisel and hammer.
No, that's right. So the big problem with electrolysis is it's very energy intensive. So when you're using hydrogen, the output output from hydrogen is not pollution. The output is just a bit of water vapour. You're actually basically putting it back together. So that's a great thing. But on the flip side of that, how do you produce it in the first place? Now, only 0.1% of all hydrogen produced across the world is produced by some sort of clean process. The rest of it, we're burning coal typically, or oil.
So we're still stuck in the cycle.
We're still basically working hard to do that, but doing it in a dirty way. So there's a couple of processes here. Japan has said, we're going to go forward with this whole economy of hydrogen. Japan's a bit of an issue because people don't like nuclear power anymore for some reason after a little incident they had a few years ago.
Yeah.
They don't have great resources for oil or underground resources. They don't have a large land mass for solar and wind farms. So they're in a bit of a pickle there, but they figure that maybe we can move forward with hydrogen. And then places like in WA, there's an area around Geraldton where the WA government is really working hard on producing hydrogen. So they're going to set up a whole range of wind farms. They're putting hundreds of millions of dollars towards this to be able to produce clean hydrogen and sell it to places like Japan. So Japan wants to use hydrogen to basically have as a power source. Someone like WA says, hey, we'll export it to you. So it's a marriage made in heaven. They're not too far apart in WA to Japan. So it sounds like a good solution all round.
So you're telling me that I should put my hard-earned money, possibly look into hydrogen production in Western Australia?
So we're now giving share advice as well. We're getting way outside our area of expertise.
Better up that indemnity insurance, I think. Thanks very much for your time this morning, Matt. It's another eye-opener.
Yeah, thanks, Dan.